doing this. And so today we're going to set out, as Mike said, on a journey. And as we set out together on the river, one of the things we're going to have the opportunity to do together is battle the river and the elements a little bit. We're going to get a chance to adventure as we go and hear from stories from some of the guys along the way. And you're going to get a chance to experience the beauty of God's creation, right? And so don't want anybody to lose sight of that. Like, I mean, the evidence of what he's done is going to be extraordinary as we get out on the river, and so enjoy that. But more importantly, I think that the beauty that we're going to see in this adventure in the battle is the opportunity to spend time together, especially after the year and a half we've been through. To be able to come together like this and just fellowship and hear one another's stories and make connections and new friends, I think is really, really important. And so with all that said, we're going on more than just that kind of journey, because today is really about a safari of the heart. And what I mean by that, I don't mean the heart like that's beating inside of you necessarily. I mean the heart that is who we are, who God created us to be. And that is a safari that some of you have willingly stepped into and been journeying toward getting your heart back over many, many years. Maybe some of you have never had anybody talk to you that way yet, and you haven't even begun the journey. And so today will be a chance to either begin or continue that safari of the heart. And so what do I mean by that? Well, the reality is, for every single one of us, at some point, somewhere between boy and man, we take a wound or multiple wounds. And what happens through that process is we lose heart. And oftentimes, I know I'm going to share a little bit of my story as we go here, but oftentimes when those wounds, that initial wound or those wounds come, we don't even realize we've taken a hit. That was my story. I had no clue that at the age of 15 I took a deep wound. I would have told you then, and I would have told you up until about 8 years ago, that I handled that really, really well. And it's only through this journey and this process that God's taken me on that he showed me just how deeply wounded I was as a 15-year-old, crushed really, and that I was living out of that wound. Because what happens is when we take a wound, wherever it may come from, whoever it may come, whenever it may come, they come with messages. And the messages that come are lies. So for me, that message was, you're on your own now. It's don't ever let anybody get too close. And so we kind of make an agreement with that lie, and then we make life work the rest of our life out of those lies and those agreements. And so part of the process of getting your heart back is having to go back, is to turn back and go towards and into those stories and invite God, because your wife can't heal you, your girlfriend can't heal you, your best buddy, your brother, your mom, your dad can't heal you. Only Jesus can heal you in that wounding experience. So let me give you a little bit of example of how it has applied in my life. And as I said, it's literally about 8 years ago when this first unpacked for me. So when I was 15 years old, I had a girlfriend, my first kind of real. There's been some girls you're quote unquote dating, but back then it was like over the phone, and you see each other's school, and that was it. But this was the first real girlfriend. 15 years old. We've been going out for a year. We're heading into the summer. So excited, looking forward to that summer. And on the first day of summer, she came to me and told me that her dad had just announced to the family, he's a professor at Trent University, he'd just taken a job at Dalhousie in Nova Scotia, and he was moving the family in 3 days. And so like that, they were gone, she was gone. And we tried for a year long distance, writing letters and phone calls, because that's all we could do then. But it just didn't work. And like I said, I would have told you that I was perfectly cool with that. I handled that. We went out for a year longer after, and then we both had mutually agreed to break up. It just wasn't fair, and it was too difficult. But what I didn't realize is there was a very, very deep wound that had been left in my heart. And then what happened was a compounding over time. So these things often work in patterns. So for me, the next thing that happened is within a couple of years, my dad was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. It took them a year to figure out what was wrong with him. 2 years after that, my mom was diagnosed with what they thought was terminal cancer. Turned out not to be. She's still alive today and hasn't had a symptom since, but in the moment it was terminal cancer. A month before it was actually 2 months after that, my best friend, was quite a bit older than I was, and a guy I coached rep baseball with, died in his sleep in the middle of the night, massive heart attack at 52. And finally, a month before I got married, my wife was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So, maybe you don't see it, but what I ended up seeing, and God showed me, was this pattern left to this guy creating a barrier around me that I'm not going to let anybody get too close because of the messages from that series of wounds, that you're on your own, it's totally up to me, don't let anybody get too close. Because at first it was like, because they're going to get hurt, something bad's going to happen to them, but really what was going on below the surface, I was afraid of getting hurt, so nobody could get too close. And, a clue for me is just a few years ago, Leo and my buddy Carlos and John Mark and I have been walking this journey together for almost 10 years now, weekly on a phone call, and we had an opportunity to have a conversation where we gave one another permission to point out blind spots. And so we sat down over breakfast, and it came my turn, and Carlos was the first guy to say, dude, like, I know I'm one of your best friends, you treat me incredibly like a best friend, but I feel like you've got me at arm's length all the time. And instantly I reacted and said, absolutely, I've got you right where I want you, and you'll never get any closer unless I give you permission. And all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? Right? And so it's this journey you have the opportunity to go on together by going back. And so that's part of what happens when you hear men share their story. For me, some of the healing and the unpacking has come from the invitation to share my story at Band of Brothers Boot Camp. It was really, really hard to do the first couple of times I've done it, but every time that I've gone through that process and invited God in to show me, take me back into this story and come, bring me healing, and begin to get transparent and real with other men about my experience. It's incredible what's happened in me and then how he can use that. So part of what you'll experience today as you hear the stories from the different guys, whether you realize it or not, is the healing that they're beginning to experience and or going through in the moment just by sharing this story. And the other thing that I love about this ministry really is the fact that this is just average and ordinary guys. There's no, professional speakers here. Most of us, if you get to know us at all, you realize these guys are idiots. That's what's kind of attractive, like, hey, there's someone like me. And the other thing that I think is important to grasp here, and the Bible tells us this right at the very beginning, Genesis 1, 20, 26, and 27. Whose image were you created in? You were in, God said to the Son, to Jesus, and to the Holy Spirit, let us create them in our image, as a man and as a woman. Let's give them dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air. Create them in our image. And so, at some point in your journey, embracing the fact that God created you just as you are, and He's created you in your image, ought to be really, really exciting and really, really empowering. It ought to give you the incentive to want to go to get to that place where you can experience the true passions and freedom and life that He has for you here. And so, as we're, and guess what? That's full of battle, that's full of adventure, it's full of beauty, right? But together, under and in Him, through His healing, we can live that really, really well. So we're excited that you're here and we have the opportunity to do this together. My encouragement to you as you hear the stories of the different guys is, listen to their story, but more importantly, right from the get-go here, just be surrendering your heart a little bit to ask God to say, hey, come and speak to me. Maybe it's just through that one word that Mike talked about that you get. Maybe it's through one aspect of somebody's story that creates this connection for you that says, hey, there's a place to go here. And then, don't keep that to yourself. You seem such a role model for me in terms of what happened to you a couple of years ago after having left this weekend and the transformation and how God's at work. And it's still a battle, right? It's an ongoing thing. But as brothers, to see what can happen just through the journey down the river is really, really encouraging. So, let's with that in mind, guys, let's just pray. Father, whether we realize it or not, we've already experienced you in a morning like this morning. As as an answer to prayer on this incredible day, this incredible weather that you've given us. I rolled over in the middle of the night hearing the rains come, and I just knew, Lord, that was you getting it out of the system so we could have this amazing time together on the water. Thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for whatever it's taken for each one just to get here, to make the decision and the commitment, set aside the funds, and then fight through whatever life is throwing in front of each one. I'd ask, Lord, that you each boy and man, the boy inside each one of us, that you meet us where we are today, and that you, in your own way, whether it's through incredible nature, what we see in the birds of the air, the trees, the wildlife, Lord, whether it's the wildlife that's in the very canoe with us, and in terms of the guy we can't get to steer properly, or whatever might happen, Lord, will we just have fun and be able to embrace you and experience you through one another as fathers and sons and brothers. Would you continue what you've started in each one of us, and would you work in amazing ways to bring healing and life, so that as we leave this place and we continue on this journey, we can begin to get our heart back. We can move toward getting our heart back so that we have something to offer our wives, sisters, mothers, brothers, community, our workplaces, our school, our classrooms. We know that's what you want to do. Have us feel we want to do all of this, not for the glory of the men who can share and speak, for the glory of the family of the brothers, Lord, but for your glory and your glory.